Every morning, somewhere in Europe, fighter jets launch from highway strips, get renamed by a crew of 6 in under 10 minutes, and disappear before anyone even knows they were there. No massive airbase, no army contractors, just a jet, a road, and a plan. Most people have never even heard of this aircraft, but the ones who've gone up against it in exercises, they remember. Sweden built the JAS 39 Gripen to be ignored, and that's exactly what makes it dangerous. So what is the Gripen actually capable of? Why has it kept winning contracts over 3 decades? And why do military planners in countries that can't afford to mess up keep choosing it over flashier, more expensive options? By the late 1970s, Sweden had a problem. Their Saab 35 Draken and Saab 37 Viggen, both brilliant aircraft for their time, were getting old, and Sweden needed a replacement. But not just any replacement. Sweden is a country of about 10 million people. They couldn't afford to buy air power the way the US does. They needed something they could sustain, something they could hide, and something that could fight a major invasion on their own terms. So in 1979, the Swedish government started a study for an aircraft that could do these 3 things at once: fighter missions, strike missions, reconnaissance. They literally named it after those 3 jobs: JAS, which stands for Jakt, Attack, and Spanning in Swedish. And crucially, it had to work from short highway strips typically around 800 meters, designed under Sweden's Boss 90 dispersed airbase doctrine. The whole plan was about dispersal. Scatter your air force across the country so no enemy can take you out in one strike. That requirement shaped everything about the aircraft. The jet had to be light, it had to be cheap to run, it had to be so simple to maintain that a technician and 5 conscripts could refuel it, rearm it, and get it back in the air in under 10 minutes for air-to-air missions. 10 minutes for a strike configuration. You didn't mishear me, nor is that an exaggeration. 10 minutes. Saab got the contract in 1982, and the first Gripen rolled out in 1987. The first flight happened on December 9th, 1988. And before we go further, if you're the kind of person who finds this interesting, there are a lot more videos coming exactly like this on the channel. Hit subscribe, because what comes next is the part most people never bother to look up. Here's the part that most people don't talk about enough. The Gripen almost didn't make it. On February 2nd, 1989, the very first prototype crashed while attempting a landing in Linköping. The test pilot, Lars Radstrom, walked away with a broken elbow, but the aircraft was destroyed. The cause? Pilot-induced oscillation from problems in the fly-by-wire flight control software. For a country that had staked enormous political capital on this program, the Riksdag had approved it in 1982 by just 176 votes to 167, with the entire Social Democratic Party voting against it. This was a nightmare. Saab and a US firm called Calspan went back and fixed the software. They tested it on a modified Lockheed NT-33A. Flight testing resumed 15 months later. And then on August 8th of 1993, right in the middle of the Stockholm Water Festival with tens of thousands of spectators watching, the second crash happened. The same test pilot, Lars Radstrom, lost control during a low-altitude roll and had to eject. The aircraft came down on the island of Långholmen. The media called for the program to be cancelled. Critics called the Viggen a cuckoo in the military nest when it was eating up the defense budget back in 1971. Now they had new ammunition. But Sweden fixed it again. The flight control system was corrected by 1995. The Gripen entered service with the Swedish Air Force in 1996 and reached full operational service with the Skaraborg wing on November 1st, 1997. The crashes had been public, embarrassing, and politically costly. But what came out the other side was a tougher, better tested aircraft. So what actually gives the Gripen its reputation? Let's start with the airframe itself. It uses a delta wing and canard configuration. The small forward fins give it control at high angles of attack and also act as air brakes on landing. The whole thing is intentionally aerodynamically unstable, which sounds crazy until you realize it's what makes it so agile. Digital fly-by-wire computers manage the instability and give the pilot an aircraft that can pull maneuvers a stable design simply cannot. And it can be operated from a road strip as short as 500 meters with a 6-person team. That's the whole philosophy baked into the metal before a single line of code is written. But the real weapon isn't the airframe, it's the network. The Gripen was designed from the start to plug into a national defense network, automatically sharing information in real time between aircraft and ground stations. Saab built what they describe as sensor fusion. The radar, the electronic warfare systems, targeting data from other jets, all of it flows into one coherent picture for the pilot. And then, through the data link, 4 Gripen pilots can essentially fight as one unit, sharing targets, sharing tracks, and covering each other's blind spots. The C and D variants brought in full NATO compatibility, in-flight refueling, and modern countermeasures. And then the E and F variants took everything further. A new General Electric F414 engine producing around 98 kilonewtons of thrust with afterburner, an AESA radar called the Raven ES-05, a passive infrared search and track sensor, and a serious electronic warfare suite called AESA. But the single biggest capability upgrade to the Gripen's teeth is the MBDA Meteor missile. The Meteor is a ramjet-powered, beyond visual range missile with a no-escape zone that is significantly larger than older radar-guided missiles. When a Gripen engages a target with the Meteor at long range, the missile's large no-escape zone makes evasion extremely difficult. That's not a small detail. That changes the math of any beyond visual range engagement. And all of this, the E&F variant can still operate from a road strip as short as 500 meters and turn around in minutes. In 2011, Sweden sent 8 Gripen CDs to Sigonella and Sicily to support NATO's operation over Libya. Sweden wasn't even a NATO member at the time, but their Gripens integrated into the coalition command structure cleanly without friction. They flew over 650 combat missions, nearly 2,000 flight hours, and delivered roughly 2,000 reconnaissance reports to NATO. Their parliamentary mandate focused on reconnaissance and air policing rather than strikes, but the operational availability rate throughout the deployment was notable. Jets were flying consistently, which is the whole point. And then there's something more recent worth noting. Meanwhile, in exercises, the results have been uncomfortable for the opposing side. In 2006, Swedish Gripens participated in Red Flag Alaska, flying against F-16 Block 50, Eurofighter Typhoon, and F-15C aircraft. Gripen pilots performed strongly in several exercises, reportedly scoring multiple simulated shootdowns against advanced fighters. In a separate exercise, 3 Gripen Cs faced 5 Royal Norwegian Air Force F-16 Block 50s across 3 sorties. The Gripen scored 5 kills in each of the first 2 sorties, and the Norwegians got 1 kill in the final sortie. Those numbers don't mean the Gripen beats every aircraft in every scenario, in every environment, at every altitude and range, but it does mean you should not be dismissing it at a briefing table, and it means opposing pilots don't either. Sweden sold the Gripen, and the pattern in how they sold it is interesting. The Czech Republic and Hungary adopted it when they joined NATO, replacing Soviet MiG-21 fleets and needing something NATO-compatible at a manageable cost. South Africa bought 26 aircraft, Thailand bought 12, and is now ordering more. Brazil co-developed and is now producing the Gripen E domestically, a contract signed in 2014 worth around 39.3 billion Swedish krona, and the newer sales tell you where the momentum is going. Colombia officially selected the Gripen E and F in April 2025, signing a contract in November 2025 for 17 aircraft. Peru announced in July 2025 it was selecting 24 Gripen EF jets, though that decision was later reversed after a change of government. In October 2025, Sweden and Ukraine signed a letter of intent for Ukraine to potentially acquire up to 150 Gripen Es. What all of these countries have in common is that they need real proven capability without becoming permanently dependent on one foreign supplier for every upgrade decision, every weapons integration choice, and every software update that keeps the jet relevant. Saab offers unusually high levels of software access and customization compared with most Western fighter programs. They integrate local weapons, they build local production. That's not just a sale, that's a long-term partnership with leverage that stays with the buyer. The operating cost argument is also real. Depending on the methodology used, estimates range from roughly 5,000 to around 20,000 per flight hour for the Gripen C and D. Compare that to other Western fighters, which routinely run significantly higher, and the math starts to matter to countries managing real budget constraints. A fighter you can actually afford to fly every week is a fighter your pilots actually stay sharp in. That matters more than any spec sheet, because a world-class aircraft with undertrained pilots is just an expensive way to lose. Over the past 5 decades, the Gripen went from a politically controversial program that nearly got cancelled twice, survived 2 very public crashes, and got dragged through years of corruption scandals to one of the most operationally proven light fighters in the world. It was built around a single idea, that a smaller country with a serious threat needs an aircraft that can survive the first day, keep flying after it, and do it without bankrupting the defense budget. Whether it keeps winning future contracts against fifth-generation competition, or whether automation and low observable technology eventually change the map permanently is a genuinely open-ended question that nobody has a clean answer to yet. But right now, a dispersed squadron of Gripens armed with meteors, sharing a real-time tactical picture, launching from a highway outside Stockholm or a road strip in Brazil is a problem for anyone who decides to test it. Mess with the Gripen? That's been tried, and it doesn't end the way that people expect. If you made it this far, you already know that this channel doesn't do surface level stuff. Hit subscribe and leave a like. It genuinely helps more people find videos like this, and there's a lot more coming that you don't want to miss. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.